China and the US certainly ramping up this investment in the technology space as they do look to compete when it comes to things like semiconductor chips. How codependent, I should say, do you think that this industry will stay for the foreseeable future, and will we actually see a full decoupling between the world's two biggest economies?
That's a great question, Sam, because obviously the impact of geopolitical tensions on the technology companies is something we've been following for years. And you make a really good point that even though both countries really have a desire now to have more independence in their technology sector, there is still a lot of codependence. One thing that's unique about the technology value chain is how specialized it is and how many different components have to come together to really get those end products out to customers. So while both China and the US and a growing number of countries would like to have more resilience, there are areas that they're still dependent on one another. So China, for example, is dependent on the US for a lot of the design tools and a lot of the equipment that go into semiconductors. The US is dependent on China for a lot of the ODM capacity and other components such as PCAs and chassis. So as both countries are looking at how to have more resiliency, they're thinking about where do they need to put money in to try to add capacity to really some of those choke points that they're both facing.
Okay, and you've put together a report on the decline of foreign direct investment between the US and China. Can you talk about some of the areas where this has been the most noticeable?
Yeah, it was one of the interesting things we looked at in our most recent report. So obviously China has been pushing for, technology independence for a while. And then the US has really been pushing kind of back on that trend more heavily over the last, 5-ish years. So if we looked at the FDI, especially tech-related FDI, it's down 96% over the last 5 years. Overall, FDI is down quite a bit as well, but it's definitely most magnified in these technology sectors where there's been a lot of, entity lists and sanctions that are making it more difficult for US companies to invest in China and China to invest in US companies. So we really are seeing a lot of turning more toward where can they add capacity or do innovation more within their countries or with other partners rather than with each other.